Hi everybody, Dan Ullman, Matt Bernier, the DRF.com Formulator Race of the Day for Saturday, July the 8th, race number 10 at beautiful Belmont Park. We're going 1.25 miles on the inner turf. It's the Grade 1, $1.2 million Belmont Derby Invitational. Let's take a look at this nice full field of 3-year-old turf runners. And remember, head on over to the Race of the Day event page on DRF.com, download free Formulator Pass performances, and handicap along with us as we take this field in post position order. Matt, we've got the best 3-year-old turf horses from North America here, a couple of interesting Europeans as well.
You couldn't ask for much more. This has quickly become one of my favorite weekends of racing throughout the calendar year. This race, along with its counterpart for the fillies, the Belmont Oaks, really couldn't ask for much more.
Huge afternoon of racing at Belmont Park. 5 graded stakes races on tap. But let's start our analysis of the Belmont Derby with the number 1 Good Samaritan, who's never been off the board from 5 lifetime starts. I know you can argue is completely against the flow of the race most recently in the local prep for the Belmont Derby, the Grade 3 Pennine Ridge. If you recall that race, Oscar Performance was able to just set a rated pace. Good Samaritan tried hard with a wide bid, but just couldn't overcome that horse's tactical advantage.
I don't think he's run a bad race in any of his 5 starts thus far. He had a little bit of a disadvantageous situation in that most recent race, along with Ticonderoga, who we'll talk about in a minute. But I think he's an honest horse. He's going to show up. He's going to run his race, whether it's good enough or not. We'll find out. I think he's a main contender in here.
Can't argue with the price, 12-1 on the morning line. Can't argue with the morning line odds of the number 2, Ticonderoga, going out for the great Chad Brown. 15-1, Javier Castellano has the mount. This horse has always hinted at immense potential. He's always been a little bit green, perhaps his own worst enemy at times. Last time out in the Pennine Ridge, not only did he have to, that pace worked against him. He's a confirmed one-run closer that needs a little bit of help up front, but he was sort of ridden into traffic on the turn and into the stretch. He had to alter course sharply off heels in mid-stretch, but then he came with a run. With a fairer pace scenario, this horse is dangerous.
Yeah, you know, I've never liked this horse, but he finally, in that most recent start in the Pennine Ridge, he won me over, and I started to see what everyone else had seen all along, that there is some ability here, and I think the distance here, keep in mind, we're going out to 10 furlongs. For some of these horses, it's going to be the first time. I think he wants every bit of it. Everyone has made it clear. I will be absolute. You can knock me over with a feather if this horse goes off anything near 15-1. I think he's going to be a third of that price, if that. I think he's probably going to be in that 4-1 range. He has a ton of ability. I think this is probably what they have thought all along. 10 furlongs, Belmont Derby. I think he is another major contender.
Really loved the way he galloped out after that Pennine Ridge. It looked like he was just getting started at the end of that 1 1/8. Your point about the 1 1/4 is well taken. One of the European entrants is the number 3, Homesman, going out for international superstar trainer Aidan O'Brien, getting Lasix for the first time. This horse is a group winner at this 1 1/4 distance. Last time out, they tried to stretch him out to 1.5 miles. A, I think 1.5 miles is beyond his scope. B, he was carrying a lot of weight, 133 pounds. The winner only toted 119. 3, it seemed, and you were following Royal Ascot a lot more closely than me this year, that horses had to be close to win. He was coming from the back of the pack. So I have some excuses for Homesman, the number 3. You're a little bit more bearish on his chances than me.
No, I don't want to go that far. I certainly don't like the other O'Brien in here. We'll talk about him when we get to him. But this horse, I think this one is okay. The interesting thing is, we talk about it so often in Europe. You look at all these horses, and most of the time they're covered up and behind horses. He kind of had to get out into the clear a little bit earlier, I think, than Ryan Moore ideally would have had him. My only concern with him is I wonder if he's more of sort of a stayer as opposed to a true, kind of push button, we're going to go on with it now. Look, you throw out Aidan O'Brien at your own risk. I think this horse, of all of the entrants coming over here, I think I prefer him the most, simply because he's going to come from off the pace. We'll talk about one of the other Euros in here in a little bit, but they both seem to be forward other than this horse. If I had to take a European horse, it would be this one.
Now, while he has won on soft ground, his connections maintain that this is a big, giant horse that appreciates firmer going. And weather could be a big story in how this Belmont Derby and, of course, the Belmont Oaks unfolds on Saturday, because there is some wet weather in the forecast. And that could also hurt the number 4, Oscar Performance, your 3-1 morning line favorite. Before we discuss Oscar Performance chances, let's look at the Timeform U.S. Pace Projector. We know that Oscar Performance's best game is speed. That's how he won the Pennine Ridge. That's how he basically won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf and the Pilgrim. Oscar Performance, if he gets this sort of scenario, is dangerous yet again.
Yeah, he absolutely is. But you brought up the biggest thing. We're going to have to wait and see what we get as far as weather is concerned, because I think that's the only thing that you can use as the excuse in those couple of duds early on here as a 3-year-old, because he caught ground that was less than firm. But then I always go back to the fact that as a 2-year-old, one of his best races came over yielding ground. So for me, I just wonder if maybe it took him a little while to get back into the swing of things. I'm also a little bit dubious just about him in general. He had everything go his way in the Pennine Ridge. Now, look, if he's going to get that trip that we just saw on the pace projector, certainly he's going to be dangerous. I can't imagine Called to the Bar, the horse drawn just to his outside, is going to let him go too far ahead.
Now, Oscar Performance beat 3 of these horses last time out in the Pennine Ridge. Was it simply a matter of he had the best and easiest trip, or was a good horse slowly getting back into form?
It's entirely possible, and I wouldn't argue if someone wanted to take that stance. For me, it was a good horse getting the best of everything, where you had 2 other horses that I think are as talented, if not more talented, that had a little bit more to overcome.
1.25 miles, perhaps a little bit far for Oscar Performance. He's bred to handle it, but you're taking a short price on a horse trying the 1.25 miles. I'm kind of against him a little bit in this spot. The 5 is Called to the Bar, a very lightly raced European, trained by Pia Brandt, who sent out a horse, I think, last year to come in and run second in a graded stakes race. So these connections know what they're doing. Called to the Bar beat a couple of next out winners in his most recent race, the Grade 3 Prix du Lit at 1.5 miles. And as you mentioned, he showed speed in Europe. How that translates to whether he can run with Oscar Performance early, that's a different story.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that's going to be the thing that will, I don't want to say throw a monkey wrench into this whole game plan, but I mean, if for some reason Called to the Bar has the kind of early speed to run with an Oscar Performance, then boy, if you're in the Oscar Performance camp, you've got to be taking a big sort of, gulp, because he's probably going to end up compromising your chances. The fact that he's coming from Europe makes me think that he's a little bit slower as far as the pace is concerned, which shouldn't affect Oscar Performance too much. But at the same time, he is a horse that wants to be out there on the front. I don't know, quality-wise, like you say, he beat a couple of next out winners, and again, he's a Group 3 winner in France. We always talk about it. It seems like the French racing, that's really the bread and butter over in Europe. I mean, he's not impossible by any stretch. I don't know. I feel like of all of the 3 Euros coming over here, he's the one that I think is going to get a little overbet.
Big money Mike Smith's won just about everything in 2017. He retains the mount on the underrated number 6 Arklow. 8-1 on the morning line. This horse's fortunes have changed for the better since trainer Brad Cox switched him to the turf. I really like the way this horse won last time out at Churchill Downs, beating 3 of these horses in the Grade 2 American turf, and he handled some cutting the ground that day.
I was so close to picking him, and then I looked down, and he's not in my top 4. That's just how deep this race is. It was more a matter, I think, of the American turf. I'm curious what you think. When he made the front, I feel like he waited on other horses to come to him, because then at the end, he was still another length clear. It was one of those things where it seemed like you had a couple come up right to his throat latch, and then all of a sudden, he went on again. I wonder if he's still figuring things out a little bit. You can't argue that he has ability, though, and Brad Cox, throw him out at your own risk because he's red hot right now.
And perhaps he has a little bit more tactical speed than some of the other closers, the Ticonderogas and the Good Samaritans. The number 7, Yoshida, he came from a country mile out of it to win the James Murphy on the Preakness undercard on May the 20th. He is now 2 for 2 with Lasix. He has been very visually impressive in his races. Now, he has to improve from a buyer's standpoint, and this horse is going to get bet because he has quite the reputation in the following.
Yeah, I mean, he's the buzz horse right now, and to me, he's the most fascinating runner in this race because I think we know Ticonderoga could be good, we know Arklow could be good, and so many of these other horses. Yoshida, I think if there's anyone that turns out to be a freak, it's going to be him. Now, whether or not he does pan out and that's the way things go, we'll find out. It's worth noting that the field in the Murphy that he beat was dreadful. It was a terrible, terrible field. He's facing much better horses. He's going to need to run faster. There's no question about that. If you look at the Timeform US ratings, he has the highest last out with a 119. The fact that he's won on the lead, he's won from 100 out of it, I'd like him to be somewhere in the middle. I don't want him coming from way the back, and I don't want him out there on the front end. If for no other reason, I want to see what we're going to get out of him because I think if anyone is going to be just sort of a star, I think it might be him.
Very versatile, very professional for such a lightly raced horse. He's going to take some money at 7-2. I know you're a little bit of a fan of the number 8, Makarios, who ran a good third at a big price in the Grade 3 Transylvania 3 starts back. Last time out in the Pennine Ridge, again, perhaps he was a victim of the pace scenario.
He also got a little bit of a shuffle on the far turn, and he just, kind of stayed on toward the end when he got him out into the clear. I don't know that he's quite this talented. I think the distance is going to be what he wants. He's one, if I use him, it'll be underneath.
Timneh Yakteen has a good turf horse in Big Score. This is a hard hitter who handled good going in the Grade 3 Transylvania. A little bit disappointed that he hopped back to his left lead late in his subsequent start, the Grade 2 American Turf, when finishing behind Arklow and Good Samaritan. I thought Javier gave him a really good trip that day. It just didn't work out. Last time out in the Penn Mile, I thought he ran his usual solid race, but he's a one-run closer, and I think there might be better closers at this 1.25 miles.
And I'm also not convinced that a 1.25 miles is going to be best for him. I think he's one of those middle distance types that, you know what, you want to have that nice turn of foot at 8.5 furlongs. At 10, it gets dulled a little bit, and like you say, if you're coming from the back, I think there are other deep closers that are just better.
The other O'Brien entrant in this race, the number 10, White Cliffs of Dover, cost 7 figures as a yearling, was Group 1 placed as a 2-year-old and a stakes winner this year, but coming off sort of a dull performance in the Group 3 Jersey Stakes, and he is stretching all the way out.
He is the one I despise, mainly because I bet on him and I got burned last time in Royal Ascot. But I think the interesting thing is, you look at the way that he's run. He's never gone farther than 7 furlongs, or I'm sorry, than a mile, and he's shown speed all the time. I wonder if he is just here to be a rabbit.
Senior Investment, the number 11's taken on some top competition. 3rd in the Preakness, 5th in the Belmont. He's a graded stakes winner on the dirt. He's got a little bit of turf pedigree. He's only raced once on the lawn, and we can forgive that effort. Yep. His career debut when he was racing before Lasix for Kenny McPeak. But then again, he is a closer that lacks a lot of turf experience. I'm not worried about the distance.
No, distance I think is going to be right in his wheelhouse. The question now becomes, is he this good as a turf horse? We'll find out. He should be a big number, and you'll get paid if you like him.
Let's take a look at our top selections for this year's Belmont Derby. You're going with the 7 Yoshida. You believe he could be any kind of runner.
Yeah, I really do. I mean, and again, I'm not trying to say that these other horses aren't talented. We know this is a really good group. I think Yoshida could be the kind that kind of takes over a division that, let's be honest, 3-year-olds right now, other than the turf horses, these guys are all consistent, but the 3-year-olds as a whole, the male's not really there. I wonder if you get a big performance on Saturday, if they're tempted to say, let's find out if he can run on dirt.
I have a feeling that Homesman, the 3, is going to drift off those 4-to-1 morning line odds, and I think he had a lot of things going against him last time out. Carried a lot of weight, might have been against the track profile, distance a little bit too far. I like him getting Lasix, I like him cutting back to 1.25 miles, but he may need firm ground. This race is so tough, folks. 7-2-1-8, 3-5-4-6, which means the other O'Brien wins the Grade 1 Belmont Derby. If you are playing this Stars and Stripes Saturday Belmont card from home, DRF Bets would love for you to be a VIP for a week. New subscribers, please head over to drfbets.com/VIP, and we'll start you off with a $300 bonus in appreciation. Approximate post time for the Grade 1 Belmont Derby. What a race. Race number 10 at beautiful Belmont Park on Saturday, 6:50 Eastern. Best of luck.